Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Saturday, October the 21st, 2023. And I'm bringing you my I Ching forecast for the week starting on Monday, October the 23rd, 2023, and which goes through until Sunday, October the 29th, 2023. Now, just to give you sort of a background about what this is all about, your participation in this video is voluntary. If you don't want me to talk about your week ahead, you can just leave. You're not obliged to hear out my forecast. Because if you don't hear my forecast, if you don't participate in the forecast, it's not your forecast. So if you don't want to be involved, that's fine. You can just leave right now, because it's really important when you're doing predictions, forecasts, and so forth that it's voluntary. You should never ever have forecasts, predictions imposed upon you. So the way I structure this reading is that I have 4 sections. In the first section, I talk about the general reading without being too specific. What the symbolism of the I Ching reading is, focusing on the hexagrams, and as I said, not really relating it to specific areas of life. Then I move through and become more specific, and I talk about money, career, and relationships. So this reading starts with a question. So this question is, what is the week starting on October the 23rd, 2023 going to be like for people watching this video? And so when you think about this question, think about what you want to know, what's bothering you, what you think I might be able to help you with. So think of the question. Think, try to be imaginative when you hear me out, because I can't be absolutely specific to your particular circumstance. Though I try by dividing it up into money, career, and relationships, but I might not actually get there. So just try to be imaginative, try to be flexible. So let us start off with the general reading. So the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 28, preponderance of the great. So you can see, if you look at this hexagram, you've got this great lump in the middle, this great block. And you've got these 2 handles, top and bottom. You've got these 2 handles. So perhaps the symbolism there might be, you've got this great weight with these very small handles. And in fact, this weight is so big that the handles may actually break. And we're dealing with something that is actually quite overwhelming, that may actually be too much for us. And if there is a hexagram in the I Ching which is associated with death, I think this is it. Now, don't panic. I'm not predicting death or anything drastic. This is a forecast for the next week. Statistically, you're going to get this hexagram coming up every now and then. It's not a big deal. But for this week, we do have it coming up. And, I think that's kind of appropriate, because on Monday, today, well, that would be, oh, sorry, not today, tomorrow, sorry about if it's Saturday, day after tomorrow, when this reading starts, Monday, October the 23rd, the sun moves into Scorpio. And, in astrology, Scorpio is associated with death and rebirth, transformation, that kind of thing. So it's kind of appropriate as we move into the Scorpio, the sign Scorpio, that this hexagram number 28 comes up. Yeah, dealing with something which is just too much for us. And there are some moving lines which perhaps show the pattern of how this is all going to work its way through. So we have a moving line here. And this moving line is about growth almost coming from nowhere. We think this situation is overwhelming. We're dealing with something which is really too much for us. But in a first instance, we might actually make some progress. I think this might be because of the kind of direction we're getting. We need someone to, perhaps we need someone to tell us what to do who's quite dynamic, might be younger than us, who says, do it like this, and surprisingly, it works out. So our first efforts, may be successful, we should be happy about that. Then we keep going, trying our hardest to get this thing moving, and then we get this line moving, and this is a problematic line. It's a line where we actually think we're making progress because the outer show looks good. It looks good what we're doing. It seems that we're really making an effort. It seems that things really are happening, but really it's all show. There's nothing substantial going on. I mean, I suppose it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's just not real. It's just an adornment. It's just a fancy adornment that actually means nothing. And actually, we're not really making any progress at all. And then the final line moves. And this final line, now when I talk about this final line, you mustn't panic about this final line. I've said that this whole hexagram, at least I personally see this whole hexagram as being about death, and the final line itself is specifically about death. It's about moving through. The symbolism is of moving through a river and the water rushing, coming over our head, and the implication is we're overwhelmed by it. But the I Ching is quite sort of philosophical about it. Is well, there are more important things in life. Don't panic. Okay, we're swept away. We're overwhelmed, but okay, it's not our problem, not our fault. And perhaps this tells us how the thing ends. But again, I am not talking about death. I'm not talking about real death. I'm talking about death in a symbolic way, and just reminding us that us all that the sun is moving into Scorpio. This is a time of death and rebirth. Perhaps it's about ending a project, coming to the conclusion that this really is hopeless, really is going nowhere, but in the process we may get renewal. And this hexagram moves, and it moves to hexagram number 56, which is the Wanderer. It's almost like we've given something up. We were involved in something. It was just too much for us, and we've kind of liberated ourselves from it. But in so doing, we've kind of lost our home. we've lost our grounding. We don't quite know where we are, and we have to perhaps be quite humble in that situation because we don't have a home. Again, I'm talking symbolically about this. I'm not talking about homelessness or anything like that. We are the wanderer. We need humility. We are perhaps reliant on the good nature of the people we come across. It's certainly not a time. It's not a time to be. It's not a time to be arrogant, because we're not in a position to be arrogant, and we're still looking. We're still looking for security. We're still looking for a home. We don't want to just keep on moving from one hotel room to another. Again, metaphorical hotel rooms. And by doing that, by taking that approach, that approach of humility, we can in the end move towards rebuilding things. Okay, we hit a block with preponderance of the great. So now we perhaps need to start again. And first thing to do is to look for. We're looking for. We are a wanderer, but we are looking for security, and we're looking to sort of rediscover that special place that we can call home. And that might be about finding the right people to hang out with, finding the right people to get advice, finding the right group of friends. It might be finding a right place to live, finding the right job. We're just looking for that grounding. Okay, so that's the general picture for what's going on this week. So I now want to focus on specific areas, and I'm going to start off with money. And I'm thinking that this could be quite a difficult week financially. Particularly if money is an issue. If you're coming into this reading with financial concerns, it may be that some of the expenses you're facing, if you actually add it all up, what needs to be spent, you may not have the money. It might simply not be possible. It may not be possible to pay for everything. Quite literally, that is a possibility. Or if there's something that you want to buy that's really important to you, maybe you've started saving up for it. When you do the sums, you might realize that it just can't be done. I think there'll be times when you think it can be done, when it does seem that you're making progress, but I think there'll come a point where, okay, you may feel that you're sort of working towards trying to sort things out financially. You're giving all the right signals. It might feel like that. It's quite clear you're working hard. It's quite clear you're trying hard to sort everything out, to trying to get the books to balance and all this kind of stuff. But fundamentally, it's not happening. And then you have to decide what to do, remembering this final hexagram, this final line of what actually do you do. I don't think it's a good idea to sort of plunge into debt. I don't think that's a particularly good idea. I think it's probably just about the acceptance that you just can't get it. That perhaps it's about the death of a particular short-term financial ambition. But that's okay, because this hexagram does move, and it moves to the wanderer. So that is, I think, a situation of the wanderer accepting the situation, the wanderer kind of realizing that they haven't got as much money in the bank as they'd like. They haven't got as much resources as they'd like, and because of that, that does change one's behaviour. One does have to be more modest. Perhaps one's not in a position to put down roots because one simply hasn't got resources in which to the resources with which to do it. And I think in the process there may be actually a process of realization. This second hexagram, the wanderer, probably more applies to the second part of the week. Remember, the week culminates. I think on Saturday there's a partial full moon eclipse. So the full moon eclipse is, when it all becomes clear, when you realize what's going on, when you realize what needs to be done, and that probably is all about trimming your expenditure in quite a major way. Now, I understand that your financial position, people watching and their financial positions could be all over the place. Could be, I don't know. You might be a billionaire. You might have nothing, but it doesn't matter. Even billionaires have their limits. I'm sure there aren't any billionaires watching, but if a billionaire were to be watching this video, maybe the billionaire had big plans, I don't know, to buy a company or to, something like that. But still, it's not enough money, and you have to accept that. And I think that's really what it's all about. So let me now move to career. So going back to preponderance of the great for career. It's a situation where things, it's a very sort of up and down situation. I think in the first instance, particularly the beginning of a week, I think there's a scope for doing some really useful work. You might feel you can't do it, but as I said when I was talking about the general, the general picture, if you're an employee, it may be that the person above you is younger than you, or is new, and they know how to direct you, and you may find that you have old talents which you thought were no use to anyone, but you actually find a way to actually use them, and that is appreciated. So that's perhaps what you've got to do at the beginning of a week. You've got things that you thought you've got skills which you thought were redundant, but actually they can be used. Then, as you move through the week, though, the situation isn't quite so good. You feel that you do feel that perhaps you're wasting your time. Those old skills, there is a limit to them, and they might be very impressive. They might look impressive about what you can do. So you may that may be a concern. That things you're good at may in the end not get the appreciation they deserve, because perhaps just simply because times have changed, and the final line moving when that water goes over your head. I don't know. I think that suggests a sort of great dissatisfaction with your current job, whatever you're doing. Just perhaps you're having to just accept that. If, on the other hand, you're looking for work in a particular area, and let's say it's been difficult, and you just haven't got you just aren't making any progress. You just need to accept that. It may just be that you're looking in the wrong area. Maybe you're being overambitious. Maybe you've just been too focused on one set of goals, and it's just clear that it's not going to work, and that leads into the second hexagram, which is hexagram 56, the wanderer. The wanderer suggests someone who perhaps doesn't have a role, maybe doesn't have a job. But even if they do have a job, what are you actually doing? And so the wanderer has to be incredibly flexible. So if you do have a job, you have to, and with the wanderer, you have to do whatever it takes to maintain your relevance. And so I would perhaps see the wanderer as having to do lots of different things. You might feel that it's beneath you to, I don't know, whatever it is, make the tea, or beneath you to post a letter, or just being ready to do anything. Of course, it depends what exactly the job is. But you've got to be ready for that. Don't be too proud to do a job. Nothing is beneath you. You've got to take that approach. Now, that's not saying you will not find what you're looking for. And if you're looking for a job, the wanderer, that does suggest job hunting. And being ready to try lots of different things and not having airs and graces. But if you are, on the other hand, say you're running a business, and that you're the top of your hierarchy, there are also some issues. Now, going back to preponderance of the great, it may be that there's something that you're trying to do with your business over the next week, and you might think you're being successful, but in the end, it may not happen. The goal you've set your business, perhaps maybe you're looking for particular contracts or particular types of work. You thought you were going to get it, and it probably isn't going to happen. It's just it's maybe beyond your resources, or maybe even beyond your skills, maybe beyond what you, perhaps as a self-employed person or as your company, beyond what you can actually do. But it's important not to be too proud, because preponderance of the great, it fades into the wanderer. And the wanderer, from a business perspective, if you run your own business with the wanderer, you've got to take anything. Perhaps if you're used to big contracts, you've got to be ready to take small contracts. Perhaps consider slightly different lines of work, or different types of job. Be open-minded, and be flexible. And I think then that's the way to deal with the situation. Okay, finally, I'm going to look at relationships. I suppose, with the emphasis on sort of romantic relationships, but really any relationships. So, preponderance of the great. I think it's important not to have big expectations. So ask yourself, what you are trying to achieve in terms of relationships. Are you trying to change an existing relationship? Are you trying to make an existing relationship better? Or are you looking for a new relationship? So if you're in terms of existing relationships, it just might feel that it's just a bit too much. And okay, it depends. There is a certain class of person, subgroup of people who this hexagram has a particular relevance to, and that's people in a relationship where there is a big age difference, because a lot of these moving lines are about age difference, and how to manage age difference. So if you happen to be in a relationship with a big age difference, there are going to be particular issues which have to be dealt with. I think the second hexagram, this second moving line is actually about it. It talks about a man who is much older than his wife, and it suggests that in spite of everything, that can work out very well. The fifth line moves that is also suggestive of a woman who is much older than her husband, and it's not so positive about that. So maybe that reflects a Confucian way of doing things. But overall, relationships, whatever it's just important not to put too much emphasis on relationships this week, because the task of changing relationships into your image of what a relationship should be is going to be too much. And if you're looking for a new relationship, then this week you're likely to find yourself involved with someone much older or much younger than you. There is a suggestion there, and that's not necessarily an ideal situation, particularly if it's a woman a lot younger, not a lot younger than the man. I Ching doesn't seem to like that. But this whole thing moves, and it moves to the wanderer, as I've just said. So what might that mean? So one interpretation, one interpretation would be, say, for example, your new unsatisfactory relationship, then that's quite straightforward, because 28, preponderance of the great, would be just this relationship is not working. It's just too much for everyone. And you sort of become single again, and you become the wanderer again. So the wanderer very much has a suggestion of someone who is alone. But a wanderer is often looking for something, is looking for stability, is looking for a relationship. If you're already in a relationship and you plan on staying in a relationship, I think there may still be a sense of being alone. I don't say lonely. I'd say being alone. And remember, this is a forecast for this week. So this is just about this week. And of course, long-term relationships have ebbs and flows. And so if you're in a long-term relationship, just this week, the relationship itself shouldn't take up too much of your time. Just wander around. Just find something else. Find something else to think about. There are other places that other parts of one's life that perhaps need to be explored. So that's all I'm going to say on relationships. So overall, looking at the I Ching for this week, I think it's going to be quite a difficult week. I'm not saying it's going to be a catastrophic week. It's just that, beginning of a week, we just might have to accept that something is just too much for us, and it might have to be given up, or we might have to move on. That links with the Scorpio, the Sun moving into Scorpio. The idea of transformation. If one thing goes, something else will take its place, and then that moves us to the wanderer as we move into the latter part of the week, as we come up to the full moon, the partial eclipse. As a wanderer, the full moon gives us insights. We can see the problem. And with insight, we can start to realize how we can solve the problem. And I think at the end of a week, whether we're concerned about money or career or relationships or something else, we are wandering, but we're looking for a resting place. We are looking for stability. We're looking for somewhere that we can regard as being home. And in the process, we've just got to be humble and just accept our temporary weakness, and our sort of us temporarily not having anything that we're tied to. But it's okay. If we just accept that, we'll be fine. Anyway, thank you for listening, and in a week's time, I will give you another I Ching, and that will be for the week starting on Monday, October the 30th. Talk to you very soon.